Welcome to the podcast of Stream of Love entitled Jesus is Passing By. And Jesus went with him, and a great crowd kept following him and pressed him from all sides, so as almost to suffocate him. And there was a woman who had had a flow of blood for 12 years, and who had endured much suffering under the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but instead grew worse. She had heard the reports concerning Jesus, and she came up behind him in the throng and touched his garment. For she kept saying, "If I only touch his garments, I shall be restored to health." And immediately a flow of blood was dried up at the source, and suddenly she felt in her body that she was healed of a distressing ailment. And Jesus, recognizing in himself that the power proceeding from him had gone forth, turned around immediately in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And the disciples kept saying to him, "You see the crowd pressing hard around you from all sides, and you ask, 'Who touched me?'" Still, he kept looking around to see her who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done for her, though alarmed and frightened and trembling, fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith, your trust and confidence in me, springing from faith in God, has restored you to health. Go into peace and be continually healed and freed from your distressing bodily disease." Now, this story is taken from the Amplified Version of Mark chapter 5, verses from 24 to 34. In particular, let us look at verse 27, which reads, "And she came up behind him in the throng and touched his garment." If you refer to Matthew chapter 9, verse 20, it reads similarly, "And suddenly a woman who had her flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment." 12 years. 12 long years of a flow of blood. Now, firstly, that is a lot of blood loss. Secondly, how much of physical pain this woman would have endured, and how much of ridicule and embarrassment from her family, friends, and community she would have encountered in the process of it. We do understand the physical weariness and discomfort a woman experiences during her monthly cycle. Some have it all easy, but some have it real hard. I belong to the second group of women, for I have had issues with my cycle since my teenage years. I still recall the time when I had to alight from a bus and curl up at the bus stop due to severe cramps, and my friends had to call for an ambulance to take me to the hospital, and the few times when I had stained myself in public. It was agonizing and embarrassing. However, it was an occasional experience only. But for this woman mentioned in the Holy Scriptures, she had 12 years of a flow of blood. It was not an occasional experience, but rather a permanent experience for 12 long years. Now that makes up to 4,380 days. For 4,380 days, she had her own untold story of pain and unanswered prayer. A prayer for her own breakthrough, a prayer to remove her shame, a prayer for healing, a prayer to be restored, a prayer to be understood, a prayer to be given her placing in society. Else, her answer for a prayer seemed long forgotten until she moved herself out of a pain, a misery, a shame, a sorrow, a agony, and made her way through that thick crowd. She would have been staining all the way. She would be smelling of blood. People would have pushed her here and there. She would have been ridiculed as she squeezed herself through the crowd. A body would have been bruised due to the crowd sandwiching her. A mind would have been troubled due to the crowd throwing harsh words at her. A heart would have been bruised due to the crowd's lack of care or understanding towards her. Yes, all of these, this woman of 12 years of a flow of blood would have experienced. But nothing stopped her. She pushed herself. She pushed herself though her body was bruised. She pushed herself though her mind was troubled. She pushed herself though her heart was hurting. Nothing stopped her. This same woman who had dwelt in her pain for once took a bold and firm step, and that is to overcome her challenges, to reach out for her miracle. Yes, she had waited for 4,380 days, but so what? She would have thought. She knew her last hope was to reach out to touch the hem of the garment of Jesus. She indeed knew it well, that her body is going to be bruised by the crowd. Her mind is going to be troubled by the words she hears. Her heart is going to be hurt by the lack of care she would receive. Now, all of those would have mattered to her in those 12 years. But today, it was different. She knew Jesus was passing by, and she girded up the very little strength she had in her to go forward to face her challenges, physically, mentally, and emotionally, only to reach out for a miracle. Similarly, your miracle is within your reach because Jesus is passing by. You may experience a flow of blood from your heart over many days, weeks, months, or years. With none to understand nor comfort you, you might be living within yourself. But today, Jesus is passing by. Reach out to touch the hem of his garment. Yes, the crowd out there is waiting to bruise, trouble, and hurt you. It is a reality indeed. But Jesus is passing by. Get up and walk towards Jesus. Yes, your body may encounter pain. Your mind may get troubled. Your heart may get hurt in the process of pushing your way through the crowd. But it is all worth it because Jesus is passing by. For only he is able to resolve your flow of blood just by your touch of his garment. In this story, Jesus did not touch the woman of a flow of blood, but rather it was the woman. It was the woman who made that deliberate effort to get up and walk through the crowd, to push herself through that crowd, to touch the garment, the hem of the garment of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Similarly, gather the remaining strength within you. Get up from the situation you are in. Walk out of it into the very crowd of challenges which are bruising, troubling, and hurting you, only to push yourself to touch the hem of the garment of Jesus, because Jesus is passing by you. May the stream of love which flows from the throne room of God immerse you in his presence and nourish you through his word. God bless you.